Welcome to Frontline. This is Colonel Dave Giammona on the Battle Ready Network and now on Roku TV's Remnant channel with Pastor Todd Coconato. We'd like you to subscribe to Frontline on YouTube, on the Battle Ready Network, and go to our website, www.battle-ready.org. There you can subscribe to our newsletter, go shopping for cool Battle Ready stuff, and watch our videos. Joining me today is my co-host and Pulitzer Prize nominated investigative journalist, Troy Anderson. Troy, it's good to have you on the show today.
It's a great honor to be here, Colonel.
And our wonderful pastor from Sacramento, Horizon Church, Pastor Coco Perez. Coco, great to have you as well.
God bless you, Colonel. It's great to see you, and I can't wait for this interview. One of my favorite guys.
On the show
General
today,
Boykin.
On the show today, we have Lieutenant General Jerry Boykin, who serves as the Family Research Council's Executive Vice President. He was one of the original members of the U.S. Army's Delta Force, and we're privileged to have him on the show today. He has commanded elite warriors in combat operations, and he commanded all the Army's Green Berets, as well as Special Warfare Center and School. General Boykin spent 36 years in the Army, serving his last 4 years as the Deputy Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence, and he's also an ordained minister. Sir, it's good to have you on the show today.
It is really good to be with you guys. Thank you for having me.
You know, General, so many things to talk about, and let's just get right into it. We live in a dangerous world today, as you know. Lots of things going on globally, especially with China, and we'll start there. Your thoughts and insights into what's going on with China. Are they going to invade Taiwan? And are we doing enough to stop them from doing that?
Well, first of all, we need to recognize that China is an enemy. It is an adversary. It's not a competitor. And we need to make sure we understand the difference. Now, that said, China has made it very clear that their ultimate objective is to dominate the entire world. They want to be the only superpower in the world, and they have actually said that. The other thing that they've said is that they are at war with America. Mm-hmm. And they did that in one of their publications that came out of the Communist Party there in China. And as a matter of fact, I co-wrote a book with one of the ambassadors that was in the Trump administration, and that's the name of it, is China is at war with America, and that comes directly from them. So they want to dominate the world. Now, Taiwan is an issue that is not going to go away anytime soon. Mm-hmm. And China has made it very clear that they believe that it is still a part of mainland China. Mm-hmm. Taiwan still belongs to China. And they are going to go after Taiwan unless they see us show enough strength and grit that they have second thoughts about whether they really want to put themselves in that situation. They are watching this, what's going on in the Ukraine very closely. Mm-hmm. And they're seeing what was supposed to be a first-rate army getting kicked around and losing a lot of people, about 200,000 wow. Killed and wounded at this point. So they're watching that, and you know they must be having some second thoughts, because Taiwan has had one enemy since they were created in 47 or 48.
Right.
They've had one enemy, and that was mainland China. The other thing is they've had an incredible U.S. influence there going all the way back into the 50s. And we had at one time, until Jimmy Carter kind of made some bad decisions as far as I'm concerned, we had a MIL group there, a military advisory group, if you will, that was probably one of the biggest in the Pacific Rim. So they've had a lot of support from the Americans. They've got support right now from the Americans, and the Chinese have to be relooking this, but they very much want to take Taiwan.
What would stop China from trying to take Taiwan? What are we, as the U.S. and allies, what do you think we ought to be doing right now?
Yeah, first of all, we have got to do everything we can to overcome the abysmal showing when we pulled out of Afghanistan. That left China with no doubt that we are weak. We have weak leadership, and that they really, I think, at this point, question our commitment to our allies, because we left Americans behind, as well as Afghanis that we had told we would bring home. So we've got to work very hard to overcome that by showing strength. And if you look at these balloons that we shot down, that was, as far as I'm concerned, another abysmal showing. We should have shot those things down when they got into the Northern Pacific there off the coast of Alaska. We should have shot them down at that point, because we had no idea what kind of warheads they had in that, or if they had anything that could have been dangerous to America. We should have shot them down there, but instead we let them fly all the way over the United States and then shot them down in the Atlantic Ocean. That is not showing strength. We must show strength. And the other thing is, and I'll say this, realizing that many of your viewers may not agree, we really need to do all we can to make sure that the Ukraine is able to survive this onslaught by the Russians. It is very important, because if we pull out now, if we stop funding them now, if we stop helping them now, all that says is that we don't have staying power. We would have been better off not to have gotten in the first place if we were going to get to this point and pull out, because it really looks bad and it shows us as being weak.
Troy, your question?
Yeah, General, given the danger that China poses to us, what is the chance that they could actually attack, Taiwan, Hawaii, attack America?
Well, they could attack, they could attack today if they wanted to. Now, whether they would achieve their objectives or not is another question altogether. And I would tell you that as the probably one of the highest technology nations in the world is Taiwan, I would tell you that it will not be an easy thing for them to take Taiwan. And by the way, the Chinese have not really been to war in a long time, even though they have aircraft carriers and all. So I think that they, again, I'll say they're looking at what's happening in the Ukraine, but I think they're also assessing just what Taiwan could bring against them. And now that they know we've got advisors in there with the Taiwanese, I suspect that's also something they're having to consider right now.
Pastor Coco.
So General, thanks for coming on the show. Well, we know you're a busy man, even though you are still a young man, right?
Yeah, I'll be 75 next month. I'm just almost a child.
That's fantastic. And I've been listening to you lately here, and I read a couple of your books, and I just enjoy you so much. Comments that you make about just living as a man, how to be a man is just it's really a spiritual experience, what you're doing here to build men up. Now, I want to get back to this China thing here real quick, because we know that Taiwan owns semiconductors, and that is the big technology I think you were talking about. But so does South Korea. What do you think about this scenario? I've been thinking about this for a little bit. A scenario that if China does something, don't you think Kim Jong-un over in North Korea would use that as an opportunity to maybe take South Korea?
No, I don't. It's certainly possible. But I think Kim Jong-un is very much aware of the fact that the South Korean army is really probably the best army, not the largest, but probably the most capable in that part of the world. And so I don't think that they would want the North Koreans to go in and create another battlefront at the same time that the Chinese are trying to take Taiwan, because Kim Jong-un and his military are going to need Chinese support. They're going to need materiel as well as advice. And I don't think the Chinese want a two-front war if they do decide to invade Taiwan. But
Got it.
let's pray that that's the case.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, General, switching over to the Middle East, and I know you've been there. I've been there. I spent probably about 2 years total over there. We see what's going on with the nuclear capability of Iran. Israel's very much into that fray. What do you foresee happening in the near term as all these things come to a head in the Middle East?
Well, ultimately, we're going to see biblical prophecy unfold, Ezekiel 38 and 39, according to my beliefs and what theology I have. We're going to see that happening, but I don't see that as being something that's going to happen tomorrow. What I do see, though, is that I see that you're going to have more countries that are going to join this Abrahamic coalition that are going to actually partner with and side with Israel. Now, I will tell you that Saudi Arabia and the Persians, I'll say, Saudi Arabia and the Persians are not friends. And you saw that when you were over there, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
You saw that they are brutal enemies. So this whole thing that we see unfolding right now in terms of a partnership between them is really, in my view, a message to America, a message to Joe Biden, a message saying, you've ignored us, you called us pariah, so we'll side with what you consider to be your enemy. And I think that that's what you're seeing unfold right now.
You know, the Middle East, we got Russia, we have China. How close are we, General? And I've been asked this question many times. In fact, after this, I will be on a show talking about it. People want to know, how close are we to world war, in your opinion?
Well, you know, the situation is such that we could see world war very quickly. Now, I would say that there's more chance of it happening accidentally, if I can use that term,
Right.
than deliberately. Because with all the forces that are together, and you look at the shoot down of our ESA, whatever you call those things, you guys, I mean,
Our drones?
yeah, our drones, thank you. If you look at the shoot down of that, and you look at the fact that Putin has threatened multiple times, repeatedly, that he would use a nuclear weapon. And by the way, people need to go back and look at what was happening before he invaded. And what was happening was he was in Belarus actually doing an exercise there that was a nuclear type exercise. So he was sending a message to the rest of the world. So I'm saying that with all of these things that we see that are going on right now, one accident, one misstep could bring us into a nuclear war. Now, I don't think that that's highly likely, but it is more likely, I think, right now than a deliberate shot by the Russians or the Chinese with a nuclear weapon.
Troy?
So, General, if I could, just for a moment,
Go ahead, Coco.
I'd love to hear your comments on the latest talks between China, Iran, and Saudi Arabia. Did you hear about that just a couple of days ago? Apparently, they are trying to, the Chinese are trying to bring them together. And I found that like so close to prophecy, Bible prophecy, because we know, Saudi Arabia, Sunni, and Iran Shiite, so that's what makes them hate each other. But this could really develop into a prophetic thing out of, like you said, Ezekiel 38 and 39. Your comments on that?
Yeah, well, that's what I was talking about earlier when I was talking about what we see unfolding right now is this alliance between the Persians, I will call them,
Right.
or the Iranians, if you prefer, between them and China and then Saudi Arabia. And that's what I was saying. Saudi Arabia and the Iranians are not friends. And I had a friend of mine who is a Middle Eastern guy. In fact, you may have heard of him, Kamal Salim, who has written a couple of books that were really good talking about Islam. And Kamal says if the Iranians have one weapon, it goes to Israel. If they have two, second one goes to Saudi Arabia. So I think that you've got a very fragile situation there that is more a statement to Joe Biden and the Americans that you have ignored us, you have treated us poorly, you've called us pariahs, and now we'll show you. And that's my view, is that it's more a statement than anything that I think either side is going to benefit from very, very highly.
Troy, jump in here.
Yeah, General, one of your last books was called Strong and Courageous, a call to biblical manhood. Given all the dangers that we're facing here in the world, the alignment between Russia and China, the danger of war, what's happening in the Middle East, what should the church be doing to equip believers for in case we are moving into the end times?
Yeah, speak the truth. Preach the whole gospel.
Amen.
Not just the part that makes people feel good or tickles their ears, but preach the whole gospel and call people out. I mean, we've got to get to the point where we're calling people out for lying, for not being willing to be truthful on things. I think that we have. I listen. God is doing something in these universities, and I can't put my finger on it, but God's doing something. But look at it. It's the youth. It's the youth. And where are the people my age, your age? And the reality is that we have compromised on the truth. And now this younger group of people have had a taste of the truth. And the Lord is speaking to them, and the Lord is working through them, and the Lord is leading them and encouraging them. And so I think that what we have to do is we have to make sure that we are standing for truth, not only with that generation, but with all generations. But that's something that I believe that we have failed to do. Us as Christians, we've taken the easy way out. What pastors have, in many cases, they have gone the easy way. And then you see, all of a sudden, you see these people that have been positive role models. All of a sudden, God has enlightened them, and they believe that God really wants us to accept homosexuality and same-sex marriage and all of those things, none of which are biblical. And so we've got to be truthful, and we've got to start speaking the truth.
General, you been in combat, and you've been in war, and you've served the military for 36 years. And you've had to stand strong. And I know several general officers have had to go through what you have gone through. And you stood strong as a Christian in the middle of a difficult situation. And for our viewers out there that, you were talking about standing strong, being truthful. What did you do to stand strong when difficult times came your way?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I stayed in the word. I knew that God had made me a promise that he would never leave me nor forsake me. And I knew also that I could not handle these things on my own. In fact, a couple of times I tried that, and it didn't work very well. So I stayed in the word, and I sought wisdom and strength and understanding by staying in the Word. And then the other thing that I did was I stayed in communications with the Lord Himself, and He brought me through it. He brought me through all of it. It wasn't fun. It was, there was nothing good about it, except that it brought me one step closer to the Lord, because I had to rely upon Him. And that's what we have to do. We have to rely upon the Lord and not get discouraged when we feel like we've got a better plan than God. We just need to be in the Word, on our knees, and rely on His promises.
What would
So,
you say to
General?
your hold on, Coco, 1 second.
Yeah.
What would you say to your fellow officers, General, if who are on active duty today, who are going through what you're going through, or taking a stand where it's not popular? What would your advice be to them?
Just what I said.
Okay.
You need to get in the Word. Listen, I'm telling you, and this is the way the Lord deals with me. But I'll pray and I'll open that Bible, and there will be a message there for me wherever I open it. Not every time, but quite frequently, I will pray and I will open up the Bible, and wherever I open it, there's a message there for me. And God speaks to us. People say, "Oh, you hear voices?" Well, not all the time. Sometimes I find it in the Word. I find the message that God has for me in the Word. And other times I find it through someone else who gives me a word. And then sometimes, twice in my life, 2 times in my life, I've heard the voice of the Lord. I mean, in a way that was audible to me. And people will look at me and say, "Oh, you hear little voices." No, it was a big voice.
Amen, bro.
What does he sound like? Well, he sounds like God.
Coco.
That is exciting. I am so glad you are a hero to so many people. And for you to say that you heard God's voice is very, very, well, I got to tell you, it's encouraging to a lot of people out there in our listening audience. But, Jesus said that we would come against resistance, didn't He? I mean, He said that. He said, you will be tested. You will come again, or people will come against you. Philosophies and ideologies and all that stuff will try to knock down the awesome power of the gospel, but stand firm, He said. And, you share a story, I think it's in Never Surrender, where you were at a crossroads in your life. You were going, I believe, into Delta Force, and they actually resisted you. They didn't want you to come in. They refused you. Could you share that story real quick?
Yeah, sure. The Delta Force assessment selection is about 30 days. And I went through that in 1978 and made it through actually very well. In fact, I finished the last day of it, which was a 40-miler in the mountains. I finished it in 11 hours and 27 minutes.
Wow.
It was the first one through.
Whoa.
And then the psychologist gave me a battery of tests, and he sat down and he looked at me and he said, I'm gonna recommend against you being part of this new Delta Force. And I said, why? And he said, well, you rely too much on your faith. You won't fit in here.
Wow.
I won't tell you what I was thinking, because it's not very nice. So I thought that was the end of it. I thought, so I took it to the Lord, and I just said, Lord, if you want me to be here, then overcome these objections. And if it's not your will that I be here, then send me where you want me to go. So when I finally went before the commander and his officers and non-commissioned officers and had a little board, and they were going to decide whether to take me or not. And by the time it was over, they had taken me, and it was the beginning of I guess a really great experience, which also had its moments of pain and sorrow and losing people. But as I look back, I'm glad I was there. Glad I was there with some of these guys that didn't make it home.
Troy, we have time for one more question for the general. I'm going to give that back to you.
Yeah, General, you may not recall this, but we had lunch together with Steve Strang and Tony Perkins in 2015 in New York. And before we spoke at that United Nations event. And I remember you saying that you were concerned, you were warning about a potential Marxist takeover of America. And now that we've seen so much happen in the last few years, you know, what has happened? Can we turn things around? What do Christians need to do to, turn things around in this country?
Yeah, first of all, we need to recognize that we really do have a strong and determined Marxist movement in America. And a lot of people ridiculed me for saying that, but I think now you can't deny it.
Mm-hmm.
So that said, we need to understand what they're up to. You need to go back and get a book called The Naked Communist. It was written in 1958 by the Communist Party USA. And in that book, it tells you, it was actually written by an FBI agent who had been a Russian spy at one time, but he laid out 45 things that they were going to do to take over America. And I'm sure that in 1958, people laughed at him and said, you can never do these things. You know, homosexual marriage, are you kidding? But all of the things they said they were going to do have happened. They're in the process of unfolding right now, like destroying the family, the most important unit in America. Destroy the family. And you go after the men to destroy the family. That's one of the reasons that I spend so much time doing men's conferences and all, but we need to read that book and understand just what they're up to, because they lay it all out right there.
Well, thank you, General, for really your time and space today on our show. We would love to have you get back here as soon as we can get you back. And, just pray that God will continue to strengthen you and use you in ways that you can't even imagine yet. So thank you for coming. And I have a question for our viewing audience. Are you battle ready?